Any plans for this evening? Perhaps a game night?
It's game over, man. It's game over.
Shut up. Play the game. Play it from your heart.
26 years ago, we started playing a little game. Now, we're all gonna sit down. We're gonna finish it.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And here we go.
Hey folks, welcome to Dice Camera Action, a mashup podcast about board games and movies where cardboard meets the silver screen. Each episode we review a board game, and if you're a cinephile, you can stick around for a in-depth discussion about a movie with a similar theme as well. I'm Matt Cousineau, and today we have a special guest. We're joined by someone who wears more hats in the board gaming world than most of us can fit on our calyxes. She is a board game designer, a sharp and thoughtful podcaster, and a true ambassador for the board gaming community. Her passion for creativity, inclusivity, and downright fun shows up in everything she touches, whether she's developing a clever new design, championing diverse voices, or bringing a fresh and insightful perspective to the conversation. I'm thrilled to welcome Danielle Reynolds to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And that intro was probably one of the best I've had. So I didn't make him say that.
I want to make sure my guests have a really blow up their ego before we get started. And that
you did it. You did it.
Maybe we'll loosen you up and get you talking. So yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm really excited. I've kind of, in the last 6 months or so, kind of discovered Danielle Reynolds. I started following on Instagram, and through some mutual friends, have discovered some of your designs as well. So we can kind of get into some of that for fun. But is there anything that I'm putting you on the spot? I didn't prep you for this, but is there anything you want to pump right now, or a plug for anything that you're designing or doing or want to talk about at the moment?
I'm working on so many different games, but I know Tricky Kids just officially came out to retail. So if anyone hasn't checked that out, very unique. I saw that you played it.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool because it's a trick-taking game inspired by my hatred of trick-taking. Also, hello, this is Nova. She's decided to join us.
Oh, hi, Nova. Oh, there you go.
My cat.
That is a fluffy cat.
It's a big cat. Tricky Kids is pretty great because I'm actually not a huge fan of trick-taking, mostly because I hated getting stuck with small numbers. I wasn't a card counter, and I wasn't a huge fan of the bidding mechanic on how bad I thought I would do. And so the whole idea came from hey, I'm going to make my own stupid hand and have these dry erase cards. And asked my friend Steven, who's played over 100 trick-taking games, to be kind of my wall to bounce ideas off of and be my co-designer. And so super excited that game is officially out in retail and people are able to play it and seems to be getting good feedback so far. So I'm glad people are interested in this new mechanic that hadn't been done yet.
Yeah, Steve is a good friend of mine as well. The co-designer, Steve Ungaro on Tricky Kids. And a mutual friend of Steve and I's, Shelly, Michiana Board Gamery on Instagram, got me a signed copy of Tricky Kids. So I have awesome. A signed copy from yourself and from Steven. So I cherish my copy of Tricky Kids, and it's a really neat, fun design. The fans of the show have already heard me talk about it, but it's really neat. The whole writing your own numbers on your cards. It's a fun twist, and it's the rule cards, the rule changing cards, for me is what really injects a ton of fun into it. It really makes you have to think sideways about how the heck you're going to play out your hand and write out your hand. It's super fun. So congratulations on that design.
Yeah, thank you. No, we're excited. We've been working on an expansion that should be coming out next year. So it's actually funny because one of the bigger complaints is, I don't want to do math because your hand needs to equal 21. And so we're okay, let's make an expansion where it's basically you're cheating off the assignment. So you're literally writing numbers that are pre-printed and crossing it off and doing kind of pick and pass. And that's been going really well. It's also nice because it helps people on board before they really know how to make their own hand, even though I do the meta of trying to figure out what the rest of the people are going to do. I'm very much a social gamer and social designer.
Right.
But I am excited because we're also going to have some more tricky rules, and some of them have been honestly more fun than even the base game. So I'm excited to see people experience that expansion.
Awesome. I want to take a quick moment to shout out our sponsor, BoardGameBliss.com, which is honestly where I've been buying games for years. This isn't some random ad read. They're literally the only people I reached out to because I already love what they do, and I was relieved when they said yes so I could be fully genuine when endorsing them. They've got a huge inventory of games and are always super competitive price-wise, which is important to me. At Board Game Bliss, we believe in the magic of play. Board games spark joy, forge connections, and create unbelievable moments. We source exceptional titles from around the globe, so your table always has something exciting to offer. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, there's always a new favorite waiting to be found. Go to BoardGameBliss.com and find out why they're my personal favorite place to buy board games. Cool. So today on the podcast, we're going to be doing some shout outs, talking about some games and movies and maybe some TV shows that we've been watching of late. We're going to be reviewing Looot, or is that how you pronounce it? Or do we have to like pronounce that extra O?
Yeah, I think it's Loot. Or I mean, if you want to hold out that O, since there's 3 of them, go for it. I'm not really sure.
You can go Looot. That would be a...
Maybe. I'm not sure.
So Loot, the Viking themed board game that came out fairly recently in this year, I think. And then we're going to be pairing that with the animated feature, How to Train Your Dragon, and then talking a little bit too about how it compares to the live action version and what we thought about that as well. So before we get into all that, I am surprising Danielle here. I actually threw this together like 20 minutes before we started recording, but we're going to play a little game here just for fun and to kind of get things loosened up. And so what this is you're going to have to, and I didn't name this game, but it's a How to Train Your Dragon name recognizing game. So essentially,
I don't have to remember the character names, do I?
No, not exactly. No.
Okay.
So there are some interesting names for these Vikings that they chose to have in the movie. And so I have here a list of a handful of real names from the movie and some made up ones that I made up with a little bit of help from ChatGPT. So you're going to have to listen to this name and decide whether or not it's a real name from the movie or if we made it up.
Oh, I am going to lose this. I'm so bad at test taking and I'm also terrible at names. So this is great.
It'll be fun. Okay, so I'm going to have a warm-up round before we get started. This is an easy one, but I wanted to read this out so loud out loud because I thought it was fun. So the first one is going to be Hiccup Horrendous Haddock the Third.
Okay, I know Hiccup is definitely it, but I don't know if the rest of it's right.
Yeah, I wasn't going to throw you that kind of curveball. Yes. So Hiccup, his full name is Hiccup Horrendous Haddock the Third. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the game here. So you'll have to tell me whether this is a real name from How to Train Your Dragon or if we made it up. So we're going to start with Gober the Belch.
Yes.
Yes, you no hesitation. You knew right away.
I'm just going to say yes or no fast. We're going to see how this goes. Yeah, this is how I'm going to play.
Nailed it. Okay, you got that one. Okay, how about Fish Legs Ingerman?
No.
Okay, that one's also true.
Oh, damn. I thought there was like a peg leg. Oh, that might have been pirate.
Okay, Phlegma the Fierce.
I think yes.
Phlegma the Fierce is made up. Huldar the Unhuggable.
Yes.
Oh, that one's fake as well.
Oh man, Hodar sounds so... The unhuggable seems stupid, but the other part seemed real.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is pretty stupid, to be honest. Okay, let's go with Hork the Haggard.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Olgar Oatbeard. Olgar Oatbeard.
No.
Correct. That is made up. Okay, and then here's the last one. Spitelout Storm Sniffer.
Sure.
Spitelout Storm Sniffer. No, that one is also made up.
I kind of just wanted it to be real, to be honest. I'm like, that's a fantastic last name.
That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. So out of the 7 that we did, you got 4 wrong, 3 right. So you're kind of right. Not too bad. Not too bad.
I'm not going back to school. Got 2 degrees and I don't want to take a test again.
All right. So thanks for humoring me on that silly game. Sure we are going to get started with our shout outs.
And stop shouting! I'm not deaf!
What is one of your shoutouts?
Are we talking games that we played recently?
Yeah, either a game or a piece of media that you've been kind of enjoying lately.
Yeah, so I guess on the game side, I would say Take Time. That one is really cool. If you haven't seen it, it's by Looot, I think is how you pronounce the company, under the Asmodee umbrella. But basically, It's like a cooperative deduction-y puzzle game where players are given, essentially you're kind of like making a clock and you're trying to put these cards face down. And before you're allowed to see your cards, you get to kind of pre-plan what what you want to do, because each of these little clocks, which are different levels, have icons saying like, hey, this card needs to be within this range or whatever. And the idea is like, starting from the beginning, you have to go up as far as the numbers go and solve the puzzle while using like limited communication, which really the only communicating you get to do is beforehand. And then you get like 12 cards, and it's going to be a mix between like the day and night cards. And it's super cool. I played it when I was in France with Matt Leacock and Elizabeth Hargrave and Matt's wife, Donna. And then I played it again in the States. And so I really enjoyed that one. And then on the media side, I watched Frankenstein while I was on the plane coming back from Arizona yesterday, the new one that's on Netflix. And that was real good.
Yeah, maybe not the best way to view a movie like Frankenstein.
Okay, yes, but I also didn't know that, and it was a really long flight, so I needed a really long movie. It's like almost 3 hours.
Yeah, it's a good 2:20, 2:30 or something. Yeah, I think it's fairly long. Yeah. So what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the fact that they kind of split up hey, this is what Victor Frankenstein's life looked like, starting from a child into like present day or whatever, and then going over to like, what is the monster's life and how did they both see the views, like the different perspectives. I also enjoy any kind of like iteration on the whole, like bringing back someone from the dead or like being different, the idea of like wanting a partner or a companion. And so they did a really good job of kind of showing that Frankenstein's monster wanted that companion. And not getting it as a spoiler, I guess, maybe, but anyone who's like seen Frankenstein.
100-year-old spoiler, folks.
Yeah, I know. I was like, is this a spoiler? I'm not really sure, but they did a really good job, and the characters were great, and the actors and actresses, and the graphics, and even on my tiny screen, it was good.
Yes, yeah. That's, for me, that's the soul of the movie, is the production design. Like, it looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I loved how like extra it was. Like every opportunity just had like more and bigger than it needed to be, right?
Oh, totally.
Like the one thing like that really made me think that and realize it. Well, the whole first act, right, is just like you get to see the town that they're in and all the equipment that he's working on, and it's just like I said, everything is just so extra and so much. It's so beautiful, and everything's overdone for that style, and I really appreciated that. And the moment that made me realize that even more is that at the moment where he was like going to burn down the lab,
that was extra. I'm just like, how much lighter fluid or whatever it was at the time did you need to put in that place?
Every room he walked into had like dozens and dozens and dozens of these like bottles of whatever, kerosene or whatever.
Like, where did he find that all on short notice?
Immediately I'm like, this is hilarious. Like, I love it, but it's really silly. I thought the movie was really good, and the acting was all fantastic. The direction, Christoph Waltz was fun as usual. Always have a blast with that guy.
Yeah, I will say though, because like I ate right before watching it, and there were some scenes where I was like, okay, I'm glad I'm not eating right now, because I'm a little more squeamish when it comes to body parts than some other people might be. So I would say that is a minor warning, even on my tiny
definitely
screen.
Some body horror in there for sure. It's very cool.
Oh yeah,
like
no, it is. It's super cool,
but it's graphic for sure.
Yep.
Very cool. Yeah. No, I had a blast with it. I had a little bit of issues with the third act. Some of the decision making was a little bit weird, but
I can see that.
It's just like it wasn't. It wasn't negative enough to take away from how much I was having a blast up until that point.
Yeah, it didn't give me the wrap up I kind of wanted, or the resolution.
Felt a little anticlimactic.
Yeah. It felt like they really focused on the first two acts, and the third one was kind of like, okay, well, we've done too much time on the other two.
The budget's running out. It doesn't take away from it as a total piece of work for me, because like I just loved everything else so much that those few little kind of hiccups at the end didn't bother me too much.
I agree.
All right, so for me, my shout out. So I've been watching Game Changer. Have you watched any Game Changer, Danielle?
I have only watched clips on like TikTok, if I'm being honest.
I know,
here.
It's all over that's how I fell in love with it. It was these clips and stuff, and I'm like, I've got to give Dropout a little bit of love here. So I picked it up, and I've been watching the show, like watching full episodes, and man, it is a genius show. So for the folks who don't know, it's called Game Changer, and Sam Reich, the host and the producer, he is everything that is to do with Game Changer. He basically creates it's a game show basically with 3 contestants, and the contestants are all comedians. So they're all like, characters, and they're fun and they're interesting and they're hilarious. And it's sort of kind of an improv show. There is a lot of improv in it, but it is ultimately a game show, and they are trying to win the game. But every game is different. He comes out and he like presents a game, and sometimes they're just doing a bunch of improv. But then there's always a twist. There's always something interesting or different that they have to do. And as a game designer, I super appreciate all those twists and the way that he changes the game every time. And I don't know how, I think 7 or 8 seasons later, they still have more fantastic ideas and it's still going strong. Check out like some clips on whether it's YouTube or whatever. It's called Game Changer. And if you like it, like watching full episodes and the progression from episode to episode to the end of a season is really satisfying. And it's just, everybody's so charismatic, all the contestants, and it's a lot of repeat contestants, right? Like they have a cast of like maybe 15 people who come back and reoccur and on the episode. So yeah, everybody's really charismatic and fun and hilarious, including Sam Reich, the main host. He's awesome. He's super charming. So definitely check out Game Changer if you're looking for something really fun to watch. And then for a game that I wanted to shout out was one of your games. So I guess it's been almost 2 months now, 6 weeks ago. We did a board gaming weekend with Shelly and Lance Carter, some friends of mine, and she had brought caution signs.
Oh, okay.
And kind of introduced it to us. I hadn't heard about it before. I'm like, yeah, it sounds like fun. We were kind of getting to the end of our gaming night, and it was a fun kind of way to wrap things up, to play kind of like a silly party game. And of course, it's a drawing game where you have to, I'll let you explain it because it's your game and you'll do a better job. But
okay.
You have to draw something in, I think you have 20 seconds,
Yep.
which is a ridiculously short amount of time, especially for somebody who cannot draw. So I'll let you explain it because you'll do a better job than me.
Yeah, sure. So the idea of caution signs is you're warning your friends of oncoming danger, hence the 20 seconds. You got to warn them fast. The cool thing is you're combining 2 cards together, and that's going to be like a noun and adjective. And so it might create like smelly baby, flexible cow, like on the front of the box. And so every player that is a drawer is going to be having their own different combination of 2 cards. And so the guesser is going to say, go, you got the 20 seconds to draw it out. No numbers, no letters, very simple rules. When the timer's up, we're taking all those cards, adding 2 extras at the top and the bottom, mixing them together. And then the guesser gets to basically put those halves onto the different drawings to try to guess. So it's nice because you have kind of a frame of reference. We have some red herrings in there, but it makes it way more approachable for the guesser. Also, the reason the 20 seconds is really important is for people that are good at drawing. It's really hard to be good at drawing in 20 seconds. And even the people that aren't, it's like if you can just figure out how to get across like the word affectionate, and maybe you have some hard eyes or something, you learn very quickly, like it's not the details, it's just like a quick gesture or like how you draw a line fast. But yeah, that one causes so much laughter. I have played it hundreds of times at this point, and we actually have an expansion coming out. It's called Caution Signs More Fun Ahead, which will be next year. It's its own standalone expansion, so you can combine them or keep them separate. But that one, I think I used to be known most, I would say, for the game Her Story, but now I would say Caution Signs is probably the one that people know me for. It was really fun to put together with Scott Brady, and I think it's been up for like 8 Party Game of the Year awards this year, so it's a good one. Awesome. Highly recommend checking it out.
Definitely. If you guys like party games, if you like something like So Clover is probably the closest.
Yeah, everyone says that drawing game. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but instead of just trying to link 2 words, you're trying to draw a noun and an adjective.
Yep.
And do it by drawing, right? And you're right, the 20 seconds kind of levels the playing field, right, for the people who cannot draw. Because if you could just draw hard eyes, you're good to go. It's not about drawing well, it's about drawing fast. And you do end up with like some cheat codes, almost like every time you want a certain kind of like area of a word or a world that you want to reference to, you can just kind of like repeat something that you whether it's symbols or exactly. Yeah. So you're right. It did create a lot of laughter, and we had a blast. And then the next day, we played with the kids. So a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. It works 100% with little kids as well. So we had a really good time. So caution signs, check it out for sure. All right, so we will move on to the game of the episode, which is Looot. So that's Looot with 3 O's. It is published in 2024, designed by Charles Chevalier and Laurent Escoffier, art by Xavier Guenefy Durin, which maybe he's a Viking.
I mean, maybe.
Plays 2 to 4 players in approximately 35. I want to say probably closer to 45 minutes. Of course, depending on the player count. Is a weight of 2.1 out of 5 on BGG, and currently has a rating on BGG of 7.1, and is published by, is it Gigamic Games?
Gigamic, I think.
Gigamic?
Yeah,
let's go with that.
I always forget how it's supposed to be pronounced. It's under the Hachette umbrella.
It's a French publisher from France, so it's probably Gigamic. Gigamic
yeah, might would
probably be the
Yeah, they're most known for like simple abstract games, but this one is definitely a winner for me.
Yeah, the reason I picked it up was because you recommended it you gave me a bunch of games to pick from, as I do with a lot of my guests, and when I saw Loot there, I remembered looking at it at my local game store a bunch of times. You know how you pick up a game and you're like, and then
I know the price point. You're like, is it going to be worth it? But then you hear enough people say they like it, and you're like, maybe I'll do it.
Yeah, so I feel like I've been flirting with this game for like a month now, and then you pushed it over the edge, and I went and picked it up. So
excellent.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's a good one for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the way that Loot works, we each have our own player board, and then full of hexes, like empty hexes that we're going to fill with tiles that we're going to gain from basically a public board that we're going to be playing on. And then at the end of the game, how efficiently you filled out your personal player board will determine how many points you get. There's all sorts of resources in the game. There is gold, sheep, wood, and then there's battle axes, castles, houses, towers. Anyways, you're going to be collecting these tiles and then placing them on your board. And then you can, at the end of each of your turns, you can also go to this public market of tiles that have prerequisites on them. So you take that, you put it anywhere you want on your board, and then that tile might say you need 2 battle axes, a gold, and a sheep adjacent to this. And if you do, you'll score a bunch of points. I should say at the end of the game, every gold you have on your map is worth X amount of points. Every house on your map is worth X amount of points. Sheep, wood, battle axes, etc. All these things are worth X amount of points at the end of the game. And then these tiles, these boat tiles that you collect, if you achieve that, like I said, let's say 2 battle axes, a sheep, and a wood. If you achieve that and you surround that tile with those resources, that tile will say, okay, now your trees are worth 2 points instead of 1 point at the end of the game. And then all of the boats that you can collect at the end of each of your turns, you can put them on your board, and they'll increase the scoring of a bunch of the different resources or things that you've put on your map. So you might want to focus on a specific type of thing and get a bunch of that, or you might want to diversify and do pretty good or moderately good on all the different resources or things that are on your board. And then at the beginning of the game, you do start with 3 of these kind of already on your board, just to give you a little bit of direction and something to start with. And then at the end of the game, you'll just score up and see who did the best. Now, the way that you get those tiles and those resources and the things to slot on your board, the tiles, you go to the main board, which is a random map, because you get like 4 of these map tiles that you can put together however you like, and they're double-sided. So it'll be a little bit different every game. And then at the beginning of the game, the first player will place a Viking. We have 13 each Viking meeples that we will put onto the board. And the first player will do that, and they have to start kind of near the water or adjacent to the water. And then you'll get whatever resource you put your meeple on. Plus, you might meet some conditions to gain other things on the board as well. And then at the end of your turn, you can choose one of those boat tiles, and then the next person then can either go adjacent to the water or adjacent to another Viking. So essentially, we're kind of growing the map out and making more and more of the map available to each other by placing out these Vikings. And then the three of the main kind of resources you'll get on the map are the houses, or I guess the structures or buildings, are houses, towers, and castles. Houses you get just by going adjacent to them. Towers you'll get by connecting two of them. So if there are, 3 spaces between 2 towers and you fill those 3 spaces with your colored Vikings, then you'll get to take a tower from each of the 2 that you've connected. So you'll get 2 towers from that. And you can slot that on your board anywhere you like. Castles, you gain them in clusters by putting clusters of 4 Vikings adjacent. So only one of those Vikings has to be adjacent, but it has to be in a cluster of 4 Vikings. So if you do that, you get a castle. If you get that cluster to 8, then you can take another castle tile. And then those will go on your player board, and the houses, castles, and towers, I think, have an opportunity to score usually more than the other resources you typically get, because they're a little bit tougher to get. But yeah, I think that's more or less, there might be a few little details that I've missed, Danielle, but I think that's more or less how you play.
I would say you remembered a lot more than I did.
Well, I pulled out the rule book just to kind of look at something. I just wanted to kind of look at the board and see, and then that kind of like refreshes your memory. And I did play yesterday, so that helps too.
That would definitely help. No, I think the beauty of the design too is just having that standard board of, hey, this is going to be this many points. So even if you like mess up a lot of it, you are getting points regardless, which is really nice. And that the whole upgrading comes from taking those ships, which allow you to put things adjacent. Something I didn't realize when I played it the first time, but I realized it for the second time, is the color of the ship matters, because some of them are going to give you higher points versus lower points. So I think that's like the only thing I would mention.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly right. So your gold is always going to be worth 2 points at the end of the game. The sheep, the wood are worth 1 point each, as well as the houses. The towers are worth 2 points each, and the castles are worth 4 points each. And then as you grab those boats, if you grab a light colored boat, it'll typically increase everything by 1, I think. But there's a few darker colored boats that can come out. And if you grab one of those, they're much harder to fulfill with the adjacency rules. But if you do, they'll I think double the points you get from that resource.
Yeah, it definitely ranges, but I like the balance of you can only choose to take one of them each turn. And if you don't fulfill it, it ends up being negative points. So it kind of is a little push your luck. But I love the player interaction of the little Vikings and where you're going and collecting things on the board. Those one-time bonuses that you can use. And then being able to build out your own little hexy board on yourself where no one can touch it. And the fact that you can just place things wherever you want, whether or not it's already touching something pre-existing. But I think it's a very slick design. And every time I play, I feel like I go back and go, oh, if I just done one little thing differently. And I feel like that's what makes a good strategy game for me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I do appreciate that design. It feels like a lot of these tile laying games, right? Where you're like, oh, if I just do it just so, whether it's Harmonies or Cascadia, there's Acropolis, there's a bunch of them, right? And they're more and more popular. I really, as you mentioned, love the twist of having a communal map that we're all working on to get your resources and to get your houses and your castles and your towers and all that stuff. It adds a huge layer of player interaction that most of these games lack. And most of these games get a huge passing grade for me anyways, because they're not long. And I don't mind playing a game with low player interaction as long as I'm not playing for more than 45 minutes to an hour. And those all fit into that. So I love them all. I own them all, every one that I mentioned earlier. And I play them on a regular basis. And I think this will get added to that rotation. And it might even get a little bit more play than most of those because of that extra layer of player interaction that you're throwing on. And just to give an example, we mentioned the houses, the towers, and the castles as being fairly important point-wise. They're generally worth more. And if you fulfill boats that increase those, I think those provide generally a little bit more points than your sheep or axes or wood. So now the thing that makes those interesting is that there's a limited amount. So at the beginning of the game, you put 2 houses on each house space on the board. You put 2 towers, I believe, on each of the tower spaces on the board,
Yeah,
and
that'll
3
run out.
castles on each of the castle spaces on the board. So there's a limited amount of those tiles that you can get in terms of houses, towers, and castles. So that creates a really interesting kind of dynamic, because I will often go to place a Viking in a spot because I really want that sheep and I want access to this house. I want to grab this house. But then that makes every adjacent space next to the Viking that I just placed available for the next player. And maybe that would allow them to connect their tower, or get their cluster of 4 for their castle, or get the last tower that I'm planning on getting. So if I'm building a connection towards that, right, I'm making it open to others. So that I find that extra layer of player interaction that kind of communal board provides is a really nice touch.
Oh, totally.
What else was I going to say? I had something in mind.
I think
It'll
you
come back to
mentioned it, but at the very end, like the idea with the axes is towards the end, you kind of do, hey, I think I'm going to get this many axes, and you get a certain amount of points at the very end, which is different than trying to lay out your board and having adjacency rules. So it's kind of like a little push your luck, but also balancing, kind of like when you play Sushi Go. Do you actually want to get the puddings? But if you don't get the puddings, you're going to get negative points. In this case, no negative points, but just not as many positive points at the end.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, there's a risk factor there with the way that the axes work. Essentially, there are 5 trophy tiles that are put out onto the board at the beginning. It's kind of a little sideboard that have to do with the axes. Yeah, so the battle axes is pretty neat too. It is a little bit of a push your luck mechanism, where at the beginning of the game, you have this like sideboard of trophy tiles. There's 5 of them. And then they're either worth... I have it here. They're either worth 3 points if you have 2 battle axes, and then 6, 10, 15, or 21 points, depending on whether you have 3, 4, 5, or 6 battle axes on your board. So the least amount you can get is 2 battle axes, 3 points. The most is 6 battle axes, 21 points. So pretty huge amount of points there if you get that 6. Now, you might be gunning for that, but the way it works is that at the end of your turn, in this same kind of like time window where you can choose to take a boat tile, you can choose to achieve one of these trophies. So you look at your board, how many battle axes do you have? Oh, I have 3, so I can take the one that's worth 5 points. Or I can wait, because once I have 4, I can go for the 10 points. Or I can wait and try to get that 6, right? But then if you wait too long and they start to get snagged under your nose, then you might end up taking less points than what you could have gotten if you'd have gone first. So that's kind of a little bit of a push your luck, and you're kind of, again, this is another situation where it adds player interaction. You're sometimes looking and ask, how many axes do you have? How many axes do you have? Okay, so I'm actually going to do this now because I don't want to kind of lose my chance or whatever. So that's a nice little touch. And then the final touch that I wanted to mention was the shield tokens. So we each get 3 of these shield tokens on our player board, and they represent each a one-time use action that you can do on your turn. So one time during the game, if you flip this over, you can place a Viking in a space where there's already a Viking. So that's kind of like, a parachute you can pull if you're like in a jam and you really, really need something. There's another one that doubles the amount of resources you get from whatever tile you're going on. So you can flip that over and double the amount of gold you get this turn, or double the amount of battle axes, or whatever the case is. And then the third one is that you can take basically 2 turns. So you can play a second Viking and take a second turn. Okay, so I think that's all of the mechanisms in the game. And we've talked a little bit about some of the stuff that we liked as we kind of went through. But what are your general thoughts? Like, is there anything specific that you absolutely love about the game, or maybe something that doesn't quite work as well as you maybe like?
No, so as I mentioned, I'm a huge fan of like spatial puzzles, and I think this one does a really good job of doing that central board with the Vikings, connecting the different pieces. The thing with the buildings is that it is kind of like your in-game scoring where you're racing to try to beat other players. So it kind of motivates you into like different pathways, but you could also choose to ignore it and focus more on your own board and the Viking ships of trying to get more points that way. And so I think there's a nice almost force player interaction using that, as well as those trophies you mentioned with the axes. I think they combined a lot of mechanics I really enjoy, but they made it very approachable, and the art and graphic design is great at reminding you of exactly what you can do. And I definitely love the shields of being able to like combo, say, I think I am going to lose on the axe trophy, but it's like, hey, I could use my one time and get 2 axes, or like just surpass the other person who just stole a trophy that I was hoping for. So it's also this cool thing of like, when do I plan out when to use something? Like, do I place this extra person in order to like beat you to get the 2 towers that are remaining? Or do I save it for later when it's like less for you to be able to pick up, and maybe you need that extra turn in order to try to satisfy the goals that you put out there so you don't get negative points on some of it. And so I think it's a really good like push and pull of what you're doing on the central board and what you're doing on your own physical puzzle in front of you. And also just knowing that you're not going to fill in every space. Like I know you mentioned Calico. That one is very like restrictive because as the turns go on, there's less you can really do. Where in this one, it's like you can place things and you can try to strategize where you might put something later on. I like the fact that once you place the tile, you can't move it like many of these puzzle games. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of fun to like push my luck and be like, oh, I'm hoping a Viking ship that has maybe, I don't know, 2 trees on it is going to show up eventually because I happen to have already played 2 trees to satisfy this other thing. And so I just find it very satisfying. And there's all these minute, very small decisions that kind of add up together that make it very satisfying and have me going back. Like, even if I got like second place, I'm like, oh, if I had done this different, or if I had done this different, like I can remember the pieces where I could have done something slightly different in order to make up that like bridge. All the times I played it, our points have been fairly close to each other. There hasn't been like a massive runaway winner, but I've also played with like gamers that are either casual to heavyweight gamers. So kind of a nice mix between the two. I would say it definitely is a step above like Acropolis or Calico or any of those other ones you mentioned, because the rules are going to take a little longer to explain. But as I mentioned, it is also quite approachable and tons of replayability. Like this is one that will stay in my collection. I would say that it is one of my favorites now for this type of game.
Yeah, I agree. It's right up there with some of these others that I've mentioned. It's one thing that I really appreciate about Loot is that it's very free flowing and it almost feels like a cozy game. You know how you talk about cozy games, and the reason I say that is because despite all these extra things and like you're trying for the adjacency and you can get a boat and you can get these battle axes and you can do all this stuff, you can just not. Like I played with my we just turned 6, so my 6-year-old Remy and my 8-year-old Charlie yesterday, because I had only played this game once and then just timing and the holiday seasons, and we had all kinds of stuff going on for family, and I didn't get to play it as much as I usually like to review it. And so yesterday when my boys got home from school, I said, sit down, you're playing a game with me. And so my 6-year-old didn't do great, but could absolutely play. Right? He put a thing down. He took the resource there. He put it on his board. He tried to match some stuff. He had some fun. Like, even though he maybe didn't fully understand how the battle axes work, and he didn't fully understand how maybe some of the boat stuff worked, or some of his like shield, like it didn't matter. He could just like grab a tile, put it on his board, and try to do some stuff. And you know, and it reminds me of Cascadia for that reason, right? Like Cascadia, it's like, okay, maybe you don't understand all the cards and how to maximize each different animal, but like it's a puzzle. Like pick up an animal, pick up a tile, you could put it wherever you want. Like there's almost no route placement rules. And it's the same thing with loot. There's almost there's the only placement rule is that you can't move something once it's down. So like you could do whatever you want and put anything wherever you want. So it's nice that like anybody could play this game, and it's a matter of whether or not they would do well. But anybody could sit down and enjoy themselves and try to put together a little puzzle, you know? And that's nice because it can range from like complete non-gamers or 6-year-olds all the way up to like hardcore heavy gamers. And those people like me would sit there and painstakingly analyze all the stuff and try to maximize and have a blast doing that, while my 6-year-old who doesn't really care, he's just like, ooh, this is cool, I can put a battle axe here, and oh, this is cool, and oh, I just did this one, now my things are worth more, you know, like he's still having fun. So it's nice that it has that flexibility and ability for like any level of gamer to be able to sit down and play. Maybe they don't fully understand everything, but they could get there by the end of the game. You know, any adult would fully understand everything, but they don't necessarily need to right from the get-go. So it's nice to have that flexibility in a game too.
Yeah, I was going to say one last thing. I mentioned the graphics and the art, but this is also language independent. There is no reading involved. So kind of
Yes.
just like talking about how you had a 6-year-old play. It's very nice.
100%. Yeah, that's like one of the first things I look for when I pick up games now is like, could my kids play this? You know, and like
Yeah.
my almost 9-year-old Charlie reads really well in French because we kind of our first language here is French, but you know, he's not reading too well in English yet. So and then for the last like 3 4 5 years since he's been playing games with me, language independent and just iconography, straight up iconography is like, those are the type of games I look for. And this definitely fits the bill. And like I said, my 6-year-old, he just turned 6, played and did okay. Like, he didn't win, but he didn't get bombed out either. So works really well for that too. Yeah, you mentioned the art graphic design. It's super charming. Like, I love it. And this isn't necessarily a theme I gravitate to.
I know, for it being a Viking game about looting.
Really cute. Yeah. It's really, really cute. Yeah, I like it. It's adorable. It's charming. I really enjoy it. And you're right. You mentioned the graphic design often helping you play in a game. I think is really important. Like, if an icon clearly means this, or clearly points you in the right direction, it's just super easy to analyze the board and understand exactly what's going on with the graphic design there too. The only kind of negative, and I think this is just comes with the territory when you have these like contract style components in a game, whether it's cards or tiles or whatever, is that sometimes one will get flipped over that you just pick up because it's already done, right? Like, there was a few points in the game yesterday with the boys where I was like, oh, I already have this one achieved if I put it here. Because near the end of the game, it seems like everybody's doing that once or twice in the like last quarter of the game. Let's say for the last like 3 or 4 Vikings that they're putting down, they're often, at least once probably, you'll grab one that'll be like, oh, I already have this one achieved, so I may as well just grab it. And like, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? Like, because it does sort of feel good to be like, oh, like, sweet, bonus. So that is a good feeling. But then, like, if it doesn't happen for you and it's happening for some of the others, and then you lose by a few points, maybe it's a little bit of a negative. So just something I thought I'd bring up. If you feel like that's going to bother you, maybe, think twice. But really, that's the only thing I can think of where I'm like, that's a little bit of a kind of a negative thing maybe for the game. Did you have any thoughts on that, or any negatives yourself for the game?
I didn't have any negatives, but I would agree on that part, that if that's something that bothers you, but I feel like there's certain mechanics that just have a potential issue, and that is just, it comes with the mechanic, it's not the game.
Yeah, 100%. So, and like,
fan.
what do you even do about that, right? You just make it so that you can't pick up boats for your last 2 or 3. Now you're
There's
like,
I think it's not a problem that needed to be solved.
Exactly.
I think it's just some people take advantage of it, which is great. Good for you. You got some free points. And honestly, sometimes those quick points aren't actually worth it. Had you spent more time strategizing, you could have got more points later on.
Yeah.
It also makes the turns a little snappier, which we kind of like, because this one can make a person take a bit of time to decide, just because there are so many options. I would say that might be the only potential bad thing. If you have someone with a lot of AP, this might be a little bit of an issue. Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot more of that than, like, say, Acropolis.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I think we mostly agree there. And then, like, a question I'd like to start asking, and this is the first time I bring it up here, and it's funny because this is like a movie themed podcast, right? Like, so I was gonna come up with like a title for this, or a way to ask the question. And in a movie, the moment where everything gets really exciting and whatever, the heart of a movie is often the climax. So I was gonna start asking, what's the climax of this game? But I thought that might be a weird word to use. So instead, I used the word soul. So what do you think the soul of the game is? If you had to, like, one mechanic or one thing about this game that if you had to elevator pitch this and tell somebody what makes this game interesting and different, if you had to boil it down to one thing, what's the soul of this game?
That's hard. I think maybe the synergies between your individual board and the shared board and how they play off of each other would be the most interesting part to me, just because, as you mentioned, where I play my Viking might help you. So you're kind of thinking about, what do I need right now to satisfy the goals on my board, or maybe the ship I might be about to take. But also, what I do is going to help you, which is an interesting dynamic. So I feel like that might be the part that is most interesting to me of this design. I think they did a really good job of making it thoughtful. So yeah, maybe that.
Yeah.
Even though if I was talking about like climax of like what's the most fun part for me is like when I do that perfect combo of grabbing something, using one of my bonus shields, and like being able to like kind of screw someone over at the same time. That's my like most fun moment, which is slightly different.
Yeah, and you can use any amount of those shields as you want on a turn, right? So you could just have like one blowout turn where you play 2 turns, and then on one of those turns you can double the amount of resources you get from the space that you go to, and you could place it in a space where there's already a Viking. You can do that all on one turn if you want it to feel like really smart and get off this big combo. So yeah, that there's definitely a couple of moments when you use those shields where you feel really smart, and that's a big plus for me as well. In terms of player interaction, you mentioned like, you know, what I do could help you as well. I think this falls into the category of, or the category of game where the less players you have, the more interactive it gets, sort of. And the reason I say that is because if there's 4 players, I'm probably not watching 3 boards and what 3 different people are trying to do, and then like hate draft or play differently to try to like maximize myself, but also not give anything to them. Whereas if it's a 2-player game, I can just totally focus on mine and theirs and keep an eye on what they're doing and try to set it up so that I'm not helping them too much. So it feels like that kind of game where it's like, you know, maybe 3 players is the sweet spot if you want a little bit of that, more of that player interaction than the paying attention to what everybody's doing. But yeah, for me, that main board is the soul of the game, and that playing of the Vikings and trying to, like, you know, if you can get something in a moment and deny an easy path for somebody else at the same time. Those are the little moments where it's like, oh, player interaction matters in this game, and that's big for me. Any final thoughts on Loot before we wrap things up?
No, I think I jumped in already with them.
Yeah, I think you're right. We have gone through most of it, and it's a game that surprised me. I liked it more than I thought I would when I first kind of kept flirting with it and looking at it. I'm like, okay, yeah, it looks all right. The graphic design, I guess the art kind of caught my attention. But I'm like, oh, it's just another tile laying game. Like I already have a bunch of those. Like, why would this be any different? But I'm glad you turned me onto it because I really enjoy it, and I think it'll rise somewhere near the top of the kind of my favorite tile laying games, depending on you know, the feeling I want to get from a tile. This is probably the most interactive one, you know, so that kind of plays a big part in it for me. So I guess let's move on to our ratings or our score for it. Do you usually score games? Do you do that at all?
You know, I don't tend to unless someone asks me to.
Okay, interesting. I don't
So
do it a ton. I am going to ask you to, yeah, and like, you know, it's not the be all.
Okay, are we talking like a BGG rating, or are we talking like 1 out of 5, like movies, like what?
One out of 10 for the BGG rating, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, maybe like an 8.5.
Don't overthink it, Danielle.
Like I've never given anything a 10, honestly. Yeah, I would say like because it's really good. It does some cool combinations of things. There's nothing like completely unique, but it's well put together. I would say like an 8.5. Let's do that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, it's same neighborhood as me. I have it as an 8. I don't think it's doing anything super innovative. It's taking something that is already super fun. It does it really well, and it adds a couple of layers and a little bit of more interactivity, which I very much appreciate. So, yeah, I think like, you know, that's probably the ceiling for me on just a kind of a straight tiling game is the 8.5. It's not my favorite genre of game, but I'm always down to play it. Especially these good ones, because it's just like satisfying and fun and people enjoy it. So yeah, very cool. All right, let's move into our review of How to Train Your Dragon. So it is released in 2010. Wow, like 15 years ago already. That's great. Directed by Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois. Stars Jay Baruchel, Gerard Butler, Craig Ferguson, America Ferrera, Jonah Hill, T.J. Miller and Kristen Wiig. So lots of big names that we would that you would find familiar. It was nominated, did not win, but nominated for 2 Academy Awards, including Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score. Which, looking back, I'm shocked it didn't win Best Original Score, because that score kills. Like, it's so good. Yeah. So How to Train Your Dragon. The synopsis goes as follows: Hiccup is the Viking kid nobody takes seriously. Too small, too weird, and far too interested in not smashing things with a hammer. But when he secretly befriends a dragon instead of slaying it, he stumbles into the world's most accidental breakthrough. By the end, the useless outsider becomes the one who can save the village, proving that sometimes the oddball is exactly the hero everyone needed, if they just accepted who he was in the first place. So for me, that's kind of the kind of emotional core of the movie, is that this, like, and I think a lot of us gamers can relate to that, being the outsider, being the weirdo, being different than everybody else. And I think for me, that's where the soul of this movie is the fact that, like, if you just take a moment to get to know a person, and there's value there. And so for me, that's kind of the main kind of message that I got out of How to Train Your Dragon. Do you want to start with your kind of overall thoughts before we get into any kind of specifics, Danielle? You recommended this movie.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah. What's your relationship with How to Train Your Dragon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of animated films. I go to basically anything that's like a Disney Pixar movie or a DreamWorks movie. And I remember seeing this as a cartoon, I guess, 15 years ago, which is crazy. I also saw the live action one this year because I was such a fan of the original. And I've seen all of the main movies. I've not watched the television show because there's also apparently a TV show.
Right, yeah.
But the beauty of it, sorry?
But yeah, so
kind of the beauty, yes, yeah, there is a TV show. Have not watched it. I think it's aimed more towards like kids. But yeah, so I would say the beauty of the movie, outside of, like the score, the animation style, because it was also really well done at the time, is the father-son dynamic, which I think they really played into in the live action, was very powerful, because you have Hiccup, who, yes, is the oddball, but it's not just that his peers see him that way and don't treat him the way that, you should treat a human being with respect. But his own father, you gave the full name of like his ridiculous name at the beginning of this podcast episode, put all this weight on his kid and constantly shows and tells him that what he is as a person isn't correct, because he's not trying to break things. He's trying to fix things and build things. And so I think that's a very powerful kind of dynamic to like kind of look at that and see like, hey, you have like your chosen family, you have your actual family, and you maybe have these things like kind of thrown on you, these expectations for like being a Viking, like what does being a Viking mean, and him going off of that. Yeah, so I would say for How to Train Your Dragon, the things that at the time I thought of a lot was kind of this like father-son dynamic of putting these expectations on your kid and the kid not necessarily meeting them, or at least in the way that they wanted. And so that was like something that really stood out to me. There was also kind of like this romantic element between Hiccup and his love interest that I feel like felt like they kind of jumped through it and kind of sped along, where it didn't fully make as much sense in the cartoon, but they explored it more in the live action, which I enjoyed. But it was also kind of cool, the idea of this character trying to think outside the box, finding like humanity in these dragons and a different way to communicate. It had a lot of strong messages for it being like a cartoon. Mm-hmm. And for it being a fantasy-based one, because it's just like, okay, like treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't pick on the like outsider kid, or like maybe thinking differently is a good thing. Like I think of in the workforce all the time that we want different types of brains, because that's the only way we're going to make new things. I mean, like Albert Einstein, totally weird, different dude, but look at us now. And so I think there was a lot of really cool messages that came from the film, but I loved them going through like the dynamics of this character who was an outsider, who then later on in the future movies, like he was the leader. He was the person like making all the moves and teaching people how to be different and how to move along with the times, as we see with like technology growing just in our real world. Like you got to either adapt and move forward or you get left behind. And so like, I think there's a lot of really strong messages there, and it's a really terrific cartoon and a great live action form of it as well, which honestly, I was surprised at how much overlap there was. It really felt like they just extended the cartoon and then showing like real people was a little different in the way that like you felt maybe the emotions a little stronger than you would have, and it felt a little darker because you didn't have quite as much of the cartoon look and humor to it. But big fan of both.
Yeah, cool. I'm also a fan, more so the cartoon than the live action remake.
Yeah,
and I have a little bit of like an ick with the live action remakes in general.
CGI stuff.
Yeah, but it just feels so much like a money grab, right? Especially when it's something so recent. And I know like 15 years is 15 years.
Yeah.
But like, it's not like it aged, right? Like if you look at older movies that were remade where, you know, like Nosferatu is a good example, right? Like the last actual Nosferatu movie was made like 100 years ago. So like a remake feels like it makes sense just because of the technological advances that we've had, and you're able to kind of update the look and feel of it and a little bit of the story maybe for modern audiences, and obviously the way that the story is delivered, even the medium is completely changed in terms of like 100 years ago it was a silent film, right? And it was told in a much more melodramatic way and a lot more dramatic and theatrical versus, you know, the way that we tell stories in modern times. Like, what is the gap between a remake 15 years ago and today? The gap is like minuscule compared to a movie that feels like it deserves a remake because it's 30, 40 years old, and we just want to update it for modern technology and modern audiences, modern storytelling. So that's just my general feeling about remakes, and especially live action ones. Often I just like, why, you know, is my question. And when I watched
for like devil's advocate of that, kind of thinking of it as a different audience, some people aren't cartoon people. Like my mom doesn't like cartoons, but she would be willing to watch like quote unquote live action. And also technology wouldn't have been able to do the live action form of this justice now. I also do think the cartoon's better. And I do think that they didn't do enough new things. They just kind of extended in the current form. But I do understand why they did it for that new modern audience. I mean, think about Spider-Man, how many times they've rebooted that in the past 15 years. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I don't fully disagree with you. It's just my general feeling on remakes in general, not necessarily just doing the live action kind of remake, but just remakes in general. And reboots, like, it's just like we're just drowning in reboots and sequels and all this stuff.
I think it's hard to come up with a new idea, I think is the problem. And all the new ones are pretty small and harder to like reach the big studios so they can get signed.
100%. Yeah, they want that IP, right? Because it's guaranteed money compared to like little stories that don't have a built-in audience. But you know, when I look at the live action remake of this movie, it doesn't really feel like there was a major point to it. It was good, right? Like if I saw it in isolation and didn't know the cartoon existed, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty good. I enjoyed myself. Like it looked really good. The CGI was good. The dragons were great. You know, it felt like a complete story. There's character arcs. Like there's lots to love there. But then, you know, we don't live in a vacuum and the original does exist. And it just feels like what was the point other than reaching a little bit more of an audience, which in the end, they're not doing it because they want to create art. They're doing it because they want to reach a little bit a bigger audience
or remind people that IP exists.
Yeah. So it's it feels a little bit like a cash grab, but it's like a well done cash grab. You know, so it's like it gets a passing grade for that reason. But I agree with you. I definitely
think it hit the same emotional notes too, because I teared up at the end of both different versions of that movie. So like they got me both times. But also that's kind of the thing with like board games. When you look at expansions, a lot of times, did the game need the expansion? No, but they needed to remind people that the original game existed. And so I think that's a big part of why they do these kinds of things as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say the themes of you're 100% right on all those themes. It's nice to have a little bit of depth in an animated film like that. Something there for the adults as well as the kids, and the kids will kind of like figure some of that stuff out too, right? As they're watching this. Yeah, I just love that the main message of like give an outsider a chance and just get to know them a little bit, and you might be surprised, you know. And And I think that's a general rule in the world in general that like we probably should all do, is just like open our minds a little bit and open our eyes a little bit and our ears a little bit and just like take it in a little bit before you just like make a snap decision on something or on someone, right?
Oh, totally.
So, yeah.
And I think in the live
really
action, yeah, and I feel like in the live action, they did a really good job of expanding the time of like the training the dragons and being in school with the like quote unquote popular kids and seeing them change and go from like bullying and picking on him to being like, oh, Hiccup is doing something right. Can you basically tutor me? Can we like watch you? Can we do this other thing? And Ingrid just being like, what is happening? And like getting suspicious. And I think that they did a better job of that in the live action than they did in the cartoon. Because I felt like they kind of just jumped to like, oh, he's doing well, but they didn't really show how these kids or teens or whatever age they are supposed to be in the movie start to like migrate over, and they kind of go like, oh, well, he probably knows something. Maybe we should learn about it. Maybe we should change how we respond to this kid, which I found kind of funny and cool that they stretched that out a little bit more and kind of built in some more of that interaction.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like there's the acceptance of change, is a big one too, right? Whether it's technology, Hiccup kind of expanding their minds as to how they can interact with dragons, right? It's that's kind of a nice bridge to just the way that society moves forward with ideals, right? Like if you look at 50 years ago and how the world has changed in a lot of ways for the better, and in other ways for the worse. But I think that generally as a society we're way more accepting of different people, and allowing people to kind of come out of their shells and be themselves. And that it's kind of nice to see that on the screen as well. So I definitely appreciated that. The cartoon I think was fantastic. Visually, I think that Toothless especially looked incredible on the cartoon. The detail and the flying scenes and the big swelling moments in the sky where Hiccup's like figuring things out, like all that is so thrilling and fun. And I think it worked especially well in the cartoon. And I think there's a lot of that works really well in live action too. And it'll be more thrilling too, right? When it looks real and feels real versus a cartoon. So those are the parts that really stood out for me in the live action, where it was actually able to shine, was like the moments where they're in the sky and they're flying around.
Oh my God. I felt like I was on a ride or something. I was like, oh God, are we going to hit this rock? Oh, we're fine. We're safe.
Yeah, really, really cool stuff. And reminded me a little bit of some of the flying scenes in Avatar, and how like really cool it looked and thrilling and all that stuff. So for me, that's the only part that the live action improved on the cartoon, was just a little bit more thrilling in some of those action sequences. Otherwise, I think the cartoon stands, well above the live action remake. And the one thing that stood out for me more than anything in the live action remake is like, there's some stuff that just works in cartoons because it's a cartoon. So the main example that kind of like made me kind of chuckle in not a good way, in the live action remake, was when the moment where the father was fighting a dragon with his fists, literally punching a massive dragon. Like that each of that dragon's teeth is the size of his fist. Yet he's like punching it in the face and it's like falling over, and then he wrestles it and he jumps on it and whatever. It's like when it's a cartoon, you can sort of just buy that. You're like, oh cool, it's like this is just a cartoon and it just is what it is, and it's fine. In this world, in this fantasy world, that's what it is. When they present it as live action, and there was a good handful of moments, and that's the main one that stuck out to me, is like literally made me chuckle, was when Gerard Butler's fighting a dragon with his bare fists. And I'm like, sorry, I'm just not buying this.
I could definitely see that. It looked a lot weirder.
There's a few moments in the live action like that I'm like, they just copied, instead of trying to make it a more grounded, more realistic version. Because it's live action and you're using real actors, they kind of stayed with a lot of the same beats that only work because it's a cartoon. So there's a handful of those moments where I was like, takes me out of it a little bit. But otherwise, I think generally the live action remake succeeded. It just didn't reach the heights that the original cartoon did for me.
I think the original just did such a fantastic job that it was so hard to beat. Like, unless it was going to be different, where this is really just, in my mind, an extension of it. It's just like, hey, let's make this a little longer and make it real looking because it's real people. But I agree that scene was kind of awkward. But then on the flip side, you show like Hiccup almost getting killed, and like for some reason the fear was bigger in the live action. Like I was actually like worried for the characters.
You're more scared. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like this interesting twist of like emotions and how they play off of each other. But I think regardless, like the comparison of the two make for a good conversation.
Yeah, as a family film, what they did works fine, and people, probably went out and had a great time and loved it, and that's great. For me, I would have liked potentially a little bit of a darker version, a little bit more realistic and grounded. It doesn't have to go all the way dark and be like this like brooding action kind of like horror film, but to have it a little bit more grounded, a little bit more realistic. You could tweak the story so that it kind of feels, and then that danger would feel even more significant, right? And even like the tension would be even higher, which I think would be fun. But then they're probably not playing to their audience at that point if they went that way. So it's interesting kind of the decisions that get made. But yeah, I think generally it works. And I'm a fan. And like, the preferring the cartoon and all that is not a nostalgia thing for me. I saw How to Train Your Dragon when it came out, not in theaters, but I saw it, and I hadn't watched it since. I watched it a couple days ago in preparation for this, but it was not something that was like formative in my mind or super like, I was not a huge fan of it. I thought it was a really good animated movie that I kind of whatever. And then this time around, watching it with a little bit more intention, I liked it a lot, and it kind of stood out to me as being like a really, really good, just straight up movie, not just like a good animated movie for kids. It's a solid movie. And more than anything, that score rips, man. Like especially in some of those big scenes where the music swells and stuff, like really, really great score for sure.
No, that was definitely, I watched it, I think in high school when it was in theaters. I was a huge movie person. My dad writes screenplays, directs movies, and does movie reviews. And so, anytime I wanted to see a movie when I was a little kid, I had to write a review on it.
Oh,
a lot of A's and F's because kids. But that was one of my favorite cartoons. At the time, I was very into like art. I always took art classes, and I almost went to be an illustrator and stuff. Instead, went graphic design for college. And so I remember spending like a ton of time drawing Toothless because I loved the style they chose and just the amount of emotion that like the eyes and the face could portray. And it kind of reminded me of like how a cat is, and so it was just very cute. And so I spent way too much time redrawing Toothless. So for me, like the cartoon was very formative.
Very cool. I don't think maybe we didn't take enough time to talk about Toothless, but what an adorable creature. What a lovable character, right? And and can still be scary, can still be like obviously effective in being a dragon, which is cool. Very cool. Any final thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon before we get to our scores? I'm going to make you score this too.
Oh, damn it. Nah.
No, okay. Yeah, so big fan of the animated. I have it as a 4 out of 5, and we flipped to the 5 stars because
I was about to say, like, you gave it that. Okay.
No, yeah, I know it's 10 for games because it's BGG, and it's 5 stars for movies because it's letterboxed. So I have it as a 4 out of 5 stars. A really, really solid. Enjoyed it quite a bit. I didn't really think about the live action remake. I'd probably give that like a 3 stars, like passing grade, good movie, but not fantastic. But 4 out of 5 is like, for me, it's like, that's special. It's not one of my all-time favorites, but there's something special, and it's like it rises above kind of the rest of the crowd of animated films and movies or whatever it is. What about you?
I love putting those half stars. I'm going 4.5 because it actually is maybe my favorite animated cartoon. So
wow, cool.
Yeah, and I feel like the live action would score higher if it was not based off something else, because it didn't really do anything original. It just extended it, like I mentioned. I do think it's a good movie, but yeah, I'd probably fall in the like 3 range like you two.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that does it for this episode. Danielle, thank you so much for... we had a lot of technical issues on this podcast. You folks at home maybe didn't notice, but our internet cut out. My internet cut out. I'll take the heat.
Yeah, I don't even know how many
4 or
times.
5 times.
I think it might have been 6.
So Danielle has been super patient and super great about it all. We got through it. It's going to be a pain in the butt to edit, but we'll get it done. But thank you, Danielle, for doing this and your patience and your grace. Folks, if you're enjoying this podcast, take a few minutes to rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Help people find us. We want to grow. We want to reach more people. So go on, whether it's Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening, go and hit that 5 stars or whatever amount of stars you actually want to give us. But any ratings is better than no ratings. So definitely go and do that for us, please. You can follow me on Instagram at Dice Camera Action Pod. And if you have any feedback, comments, or concerns, or want to suggest any movie game pairings, email me, dicecameraactionpod@gmail.com. Danielle, thanks again. Super fun. And hopefully we'll do it again.
Yeah, totally.